Imagine if the 5-hour tasks you had felt like you complete them in 5 minutes. You probably think I'm super crazy, which I am, but this is actually insanely possible because scientists have recently discovered that the secret state called hypofrontality literally makes you 500% more focused and productive in 20 minutes. So let me give you this step-by-step game plan to access this hypofrontality state within 5 minutes. You see, the biggest reason why entrepreneurs can't focus isn't to do with YouTube, it isn't to do with scrolling, it's actually to do with their thoughts. Because the thing is, when you're working, your thoughts are going to go crazy. When you're in some kind of discomfort state, your prefrontal cortex, which manages all of the thoughts, are going to go haywire. And the terrible thing is, as soon as a thought distracts you and stops you from working, you have to reset the timer to access this hypofrontality state every single 20 minutes, because it's basically proven that this state can only be accessed around 25 or 28 minutes when you're working. This is terrible because tasks will take 5 times the time to complete and your health will go out the window, because when you're trying to balance a business with school, when you're trying to balance the business with your personal life, you don't have time for anything else. And I know this to be true because like a few months ago, I wouldn't even leave my desk for 10 hours every single day. I would sit at my desk, not even leave my room, just working. And sure, some entrepreneurs will say that's good, right? The hustle culture guys. But if you really care about your own health, which obviously by far matters much more than the money in your bank account, right? You need to lower your work hours so you can have your personal life as well. Because I literally had no free time outside my work hours. And even though I was making all this money with my old business, I didn't enjoy it. And what's the point of making lots of money when one, it doesn't fulfill you, but also you can't even spend it because you're just tied to your desk all day. But the thing is, as soon as I tapped into this flow state, this hyperfrontality state, I started to have at least 6+ hours of free time every single day, even though I was achieving much more than most entrepreneurs. So what the hell is hyperfrontality then? Why do I keep on yapping about this concept? Well, transient hyperfrontality is basically when all the circuits inside the prefrontal cortex basically turn off, or they temporarily just like go and have a walk. And what happens is, because that manages all your thoughts, you don't have negative thoughts anymore. You don't get distracted by your mind. Instead, you basically become one with the work. And that's why sometimes 5 hours of work for me feels like 5 minutes. Now, a flow state is very similar to this, and you've already heard me talk about the flow state on this channel. But transient hyperfrontality basically turns off all the thoughts inside your brain, and that's why it's so powerful. Because imagine if you didn't have those thoughts anymore, you didn't have the self-doubt, the fear, the anxiety about your personal life, and you could just work. But how do you actually tap into this transient hyperfrontality state? Well, it's pretty simple. But in a flow state, there's 4 stages. The first one is called the struggle, the second one is called the release, the third one is called flow, and the fourth one is called recovery. I'm only going to focus on the struggle stage for now, simply because that is how we tap into this hyperfrontality state. Because the thing is, what happens to you, right? You go to work on your business, you feel lots of mental resistance to do with a task, or when you go to study or something, so you kind of just sit there procrastinating. You don't really work that hard because you feel like the task is going to take forever. You really don't want to put your mind to it, right? But the thing is, you have to realize that the task is only hard in the first 5 to 15 minutes. It's like if you've ever done martial arts, you're in like this competitive fight where the opponent is like much better than you and you're kind of just like pretty bad, right? I remember being in that situation. Of course, like 1 minute before I was going to do the fight, I felt terrified. I literally was about to throw it because of my anxiety, right? But as soon as I stepped into the ring, as soon as I literally just whacked him with my jab, you know, all those thoughts went away, and it's like I was in a flow state, you know. And that's why you get into a flow state. It's because you battle the struggle, you have the courage to keep moving, and that causes you to get into a flow state. Realize the next time you go to work and you have this resistance, just realize it's only for 5 minutes. It's only in the first 30 seconds of you working. As soon as you sit down to record a video, as soon as you sit down to work and type on your keyboard, all the mental resistance goes. The challenge of the task will be 4% higher than your current skill levels, and if you know anything about the flow state, the chance to score ratio, that is like the golden rule of flow. You need to make sure the challenge of the task is kind of just like a tiny bit above your skill levels, ideally 4%, and then you can get into a flow state. And that's what we want to do. We want to make ourselves struggle, because if we don't struggle and everything's boring to us, we're just going to fall to distractions, you know? That is exactly how you enjoy the work and actually focus in this modern era when you've got so many distractions. I want to give you a quick analogy that really helps a lot of my clients, and myself included. I want you to imagine that you are climbing up this snowy mountain, and you look behind you, you can see the little steps you've walked, you can see your footprints in the snow. There's a giant blizzard at the moment, and you look up and you look at the top of the mountain, you see how far you have to go compared to how far you've gone behind you, and you start to procrastinate because you see this giant hill, just you can't even see the top of it, right? So you just see that you start to procrastinate because your brain does not see the possibility. But instead of looking at the top, why don't we look here? Why don't we look in the little cliff face that is like right in front of us? And then once we get to there, we look at the next cliff face and the next one until we realize that we're actually at the top. This is how you need to think of getting to a flow state and actually focusing, because we can imagine these little checkpoints as just 5 minutes of work, 5-minute timer of work, 5-minute timer of work, 5-minute timer of work, and boom, we've done the work, right? That is how you need to think about it, especially when you're super undisciplined, especially when you constantly get distracted and your dopamine is way too high, okay? Just realize as soon as you get past the first 5 minutes to the first 15 minutes, everything falls into place. That is exactly how I reached this transient hypofrontality state. It killed all my negative emotions while I'm working so I can actually focus, achieve results in my business, achieve my goals, even in the gym, even in my personal life, right? So, by the way, if you're an entrepreneur who wants to get into a flow state for 6+ hours every single day, completely change your productivity so you can lock in, make more money online, live a life of freedom without a 9 to 5, without slaving away at your desk as well, having lots of free time, click the first link in the description to join my free community. Goodbye, have a nice day. I really hope you enjoyed this video. You're gonna elbow in the face again. Goodbye.